Duke, very, very controversial articles come across our desk, written, of course, for afl.com.au, the website of the Football League.
Exactly.
What are you
Explosive.
looking at,
I'm just looking at you,
What are you looking at me for? I've not done anything. Give us just, it's about feedback and the value of it. It's entitled The Value of Feedback. And you've spoken about your experiences at the Western Bulldogs, and it's fair to say Damo's going to take the running up, but you pointed the finger at your former coach.
Yeah, look, in just some context is I write one every week, and last week we were sitting here on the Friday Rubber and we were talking about some of the discussions about the leading teams program that runs in a lot of successful AFL teams at the moment. It was likened last week to workplace bullying and to vendettas being driven by hate groups, and I'm just sitting there thinking that just doesn't reflect my experience. And I haven't actually been involved in the leading teams programs, but the game evolves very quickly as you move on. The players that I still speak to talk to me about it being the best thing that changes culture within football clubs. And when you are writing about something, you go back to your own experience. Now, can I just say off the top, I wasn't sitting around this week going, how can I try and be controversial? I need to try and write something to elicit this sort of response. And I wasn't sitting there thinking, how can I pop my old coach? Because,
but you've done that.
No, well, I haven't. Because if you read the first part of it, what I said was the reason why we were good, Chief, and the reason why we were in prelim finals was because at the time he revolutionised the game. Some of the things he brought to the table were extraordinary. Changed the way we play footy. On-ground warm-ups, we trained 8 weeks earlier than anyone had done. 95% of what he did got us from nowhere, and we were shocking to being competitive enough to win it.
Can I just paraphrase again, Jim?
Can you just not interrupt and just actually give me a chance to finish?
Hang on.
Give me 10 seconds to finish.
Mate, you're trying to...
Go. No, you just let me finish.
Just wait your turn, Chief.
Come on, Chief. I know you're ready to go. And then essentially what I said was the percent. There were enough strong people around the club at that stage. There was good people who have turned out to be very successful in all parts of their life, who had the common theme that there were small things within the club that we felt if the club changed to being more player-driven, and there was a specific time where a group of a dozen of us got around. I was only 22 at the stage, but there was Scott Wine. You can go through Tony Liberatore. Scott West was an extraordinary player at the time. Jose Ramiro. There was enough core players that said if we actually get this little stuff right, we are capable of winning a premiership. Delivered it to the coach at the time. And in fairness to him, no one was doing that. He wasn't prepared to accept that. I specifically remember the message coming back going, I think players meeting on their own is akin to discontent, not to actually improving the place. On reflection, I look back, my belief is if you had been able to be ahead of your time in that area, now no one else was, we had the chance to win a premiership, and in fact I reckon we would have. Wasn't a pot shot.
It is a pot shot, Dust. It is a pot shot. It reads like this. It is my absolute belief that the Bulldogs would have won a premiership in the late 90s had the coach felt secure enough in himself to accept input from the playing group.
I believe that.
And 2 paragraphs later, not surprisingly, the Richmond players shared a similar experience following Terry's 5-year stint at Tigerland. That's a little clip on the way through.
No, that's just basically saying
I feel vindicated.
If you get feedback, then maybe you don't make similar mistakes that the Richmond players have told me. His good stuff is extraordinary. And name someone who's perfect. Far be it from me. I'm getting a fair bit of feedback from
we
a few
would
of my
have won a
teammates
premiership
at the moment.
had the coach felt secure in himself to accept input from the playing
agree.
group.
Absolutely
So
believe
the
that.
reason you fell short in 2 preliminary finals was because the coach didn't accept feedback from the
If
players.
we had have been able
seriously,
to...
Are you seriously saying that? You lost 2 preliminary finals
I
on
wrote
the back of the coach...
I wrote it, Damien.
Well,
of course
I can't
I'm serious.
believe that. I can't believe that.
Let me explain it to you.
How did you lose that preliminary final to Adelaide?
Why have Geelong...
Because the coach didn't accept the feedback
Well,
from
listen,
the
if you
players.
listen and stop talking for
Go
a
on,
second,
Jim.
I'll give you an
Warming
opportunity
up.
to,
I like it,
to
warming
explain
up.
myself. Why Geelong, with the draft and the salary cap, have been the most incredible powerhouse. You speak to anyone down there, Damo, and they will talk to you about a moment where Steve Johnson went off track, and the players then got hold of Steve Johnson, who they knew at the time was a fantastic person, a great bloke. And
maybe collectively, the quality of the Geelong players is superior to what it was at the Bulldogs in 97 and 98.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is, no doubt about
so maybe
that.
maybe that's why they've won 2 premierships.
Well, they nearly sacked their coach in 2007. You speak to anyone within that group, they will tell you the pivotal change in that club was actually the stage where they got around, they gave each other feedback. It's hard. It's confronting a thing to do. In that time in the late 90s, our list of players, in my opinion, it's called an opinion piece.
You missed the grand final by a kick, and you're blaming the coach.
I'm blaming the fact that we didn't win one in that time because we weren't able to address the small issues. It's an opinion piece.
Just with your Geelong analogy, which I think is a good one, Bill.
Yes.
There's no doubt that it wasn't only Stevie J. It's my understanding Scarlett and Ablett were also put out the front and told by the group that they needed areas that they could have fixed.
Yes.
They went on to fix them and became in the top 5 in the competition. So it wasn't just Johnson that benefited.
No, exactly. Gary Ablett was put out the front and told he doesn't work hard enough at training, and a few other things, and Scarlett the same. So they certainly were put out the front. But there was a few other changes too, obviously, that they made.
Yeah.
Neil Baum came to the club, and they got certain personnel and a new captain.
An unbelievably gifted group.
Can I just say, I wasn't trying to have a blue with you. The point I was making, Das, is you've given some very valid reasoning there behind the article. But me, as the reader reading the article, couldn't draw the same conclusions that you're making now. So to me, when I read it, I just thought, geez, that's a fair pot.
And you cut and paste, as it has been in the Herald Sun, the headline says, Darcy blames coach for grand final.
Yep.
Clearly, if you read the full thing, that couldn't be further from the reason why we were good enough to get there was because 95% of what he did was extraordinary. The ability to actually get feedback. You know what? There probably would have been some good feedback coming my way as a 22-year-old, maybe just to pull your head in and do some things differently that would have helped as well. I'm not absolving myself from anything in that time. It is an opinion looking back that I reckon we would have won one, Gary, had we have been able to accept some of the things that we weren't good at.
Relax, mate, relax. I stuck up for you just then.
All of us that have written articles, there is occasions when you write one and you send, you push the send button.
You go,
No, Chief. There's those occasions as well, but there are others when you write one, just sort of obliviously go, oh, yeah, not a bad, just with that whack, and you go away and you make yourself a cup of tea, and all of a sudden your phone goes bang. Is this shaping as one of those? There's another one here that people are going to pick up on. We believe the coach focused too heavily on individual awards, best and fairest All Australia. The coach had also floated the idea in the week of the preliminary final, the players and coaching staff should get premiership rings. Many of us thought we were getting ahead of ourselves by being rewarded before we'd even made the grand final. So that's it's an accurate portrayal of a situation where you think that maybe we're losing track of where we're at.
And you know why I feel comfortable with this? Because I've had this very conversation with Terry Wallace when he left the Bulldogs. I said, these are the things that were fantastic. You taught me an enormous amount about the game. These are the things that I felt that could have been improved on. Absolutely had that conversation. I've seen him 3 weeks ago. There's no issue at all. When you sit down and reflect on your time in the game, it's an opinion to actually suggest.
What did he say to that? What did he say about the...
Well, his exit from the Bulldogs was probably fairly disastrous.
About let's get some premiership rings when you haven't even won the preliminary final.
At the time, there was a supporter that had a ticket that if we won it was going to give the playing group something like $40,000 or $50,000. The coach came down and thought as a motivation they would be used as premiership rings in the prelim final week. I, as a 22-year-old, thought that was probably getting ahead of yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I would have agreed.
In the current environment, you could actually give that feedback. Back then, you couldn't. And that is the point I was trying to make. Not having a crack at a coach who did extraordinary things in the game.
You had a crack at him,
and has done extraordinary things.
Draw breath.